Well, it's not the best day for it, but I thought I'd just better get a tour done. I've got a bit of a chest infection, but yeah, I'll do my best. So yeah, gloomy day, 15th of August. Feels like October, but yeah, we've got a lot of stuff growing. Let's have a look around. So my winter leeks, kind of growing through the rust, as I was hoping. It's not really spread that much. And then we've got the colettes. I've just taken most of the lower leaves off these, and the colettes are just starting to form. So they're looking pretty good actually. I was disappointed to discover that I had got clubroot in this bed, which is meant to be my brassica bed for next year. I just put some test pak choi, or tatsoi rather, no, what are they? Joy choi. Some joy choi in here, and yeah, terrible clubroot on those. But these colettes are looking good. I do suspect though that I will find a bit of clubroot on these as well, but it's not really seemed to have affected the growth. And the Brussels sprouts looking even better, to be honest. I mean, really good sprout growth on these. So I think the sequence is definitely going to be, we'll eat the Brussels sprouts first and then we'll move on to the colettes. But yeah, pretty pleased with these. And of course, we haven't got nets on. I don't really like to have nets on at this time of year. We're still obviously getting some caterpillar issues, but just keep an eye on them really is the way that I like to approach it. And of course some whitefly as well. But again, I'm not worried about this level of whitefly. That's not a problem for me. These are the spring leeks. I did have lettuces in here. I've taken those out. Honestly, we're just decimated by slugs and snails. So it happens to the best of us. And beetroot. So this is my storage beetroot crop. And it's looking, yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good. Not every beetroot is sized up, so I have got some where maybe there's a clump of 3 and one of them is really big and 2 of them are really quite small, which is not what you want for a storage crop. But yeah, it is what it is. Well, I guess we'll just eat some of them early. But I think there's enough there anyway to see us through winter and spring. Just planted up this bed. This was my onion bed, and I'll show you the onions later, but I've got some spinach in there. And that is looking okay, and the slugs and snails don't seem to be eating that too much. I've put a few slug pellets down though, just to be on the safe side. But to be honest, looking at this bed, which is the lettuce bed and some turnips and things, I just took 2 massive slugs out of this bed, and I've got slug pellets down in this bed. So, oh dear, it's quite a challenge this year with slugs and snails, but I think I'm going to get most of these lettuces going to pull through. There's one at the back there, maybe you can just see it, it's there, that is looking really small and weak, and that's been eaten quite badly. I just took my potatoes out of here, 50 pounds of potatoes out of these 2 beds here. And again, I've had to put some slug pellets down in here. I don't really like to put slug pellets down, but I mean, there's just no option for me at the moment. I just can't manage it. Now I know I probably could put also some other sort of slug traps, beer traps and things like that, but I don't have those to hand. And lettuces, tatsoi, joy choi, and komatsuma red stem pak choi in there. So I'm excited for these because we're a bit short of salads, and obviously these make lovely additions to the salads. So these are my new summer fruiting raspberries, and obviously they're starting to die off a little bit now, but I think they've put on enough growth that I'll get quite a nice harvest off them next year. So no pruning required, which is good. And these are the best of the melons at the moment. The other beds have suffered from mildew quite badly, and these are obviously starting a little bit, but not too bad. And we have started harvesting melons, and they have been really great. I'll show you the ones we've been harvesting later. And here's about 60% of my onions, maybe 50% of my onions. So let's just have a look inside. These are all drying pretty well actually. I think they'll be ready for processing in maybe a week. Down this little storage path, I think of it as, but this year I decided to put some potatoes in containers. These are the only Sarfamiras that I've got, looking a bit ragged but still growing fairly strong. I've pretty much taken all the stems off all of my second earlies now and just stacked those up next to the house. We've got 28 tubs of potatoes and we've got about 2 months supply already harvested, so that means we've basically got a tub a week until the end of April. First season for this apple tree. It's not done very well, but it's got plenty of seasons ahead of it. And then these are some of my climbing squash, and obviously they've suffered with this weather, but actually getting a decent number of large squash off them, and it's got quite a few of these frames. I'll show you them as I go around. These are the Mange de Bois strawberries. These have been great, and so I've decided these are the ones I'm going to take runners off for when I expand my strawberry bed. This bed's just about to be cleared, so I'm just leaving these French beans to mature so I can harvest these, because I really like these purple ones, amethyst, and yeah, so I'll get this planted in a few weeks' time. This is one of my sad looking beds of melons, but these melons are ready now, and so it doesn't matter. So obviously we can't get through that many melons that quickly, so we've harvested just one, and I'll harvest one every few days. And these are still pretty good. A bit of downy mildew starting on these, so these are the little cantaloupes. So I've been pretty pleased really with the melons so far, given the adverse weather conditions. It's not been a great melon growing year. I'd harvesting these early parsnips, so these have all got to be cleared by the end of September so I can get this bed replanted with spinach. And finally, it's taken a long time for the oca to sort of really take off. I've put them in bigger containers than I have in the past, in the hope that I can keep them better watered, and that seems to have worked okay. I've got a little bit of New Zealand spinach there, and those are my second early strawberries, and I've just taken all the tops off and they've all regrown really nicely, so they don't need that net, but the net needs to be stored somewhere. And then here we've got some more squash down the back there, again growing pretty nicely, and purple sprouting broccoli. So we've got a bed there, and a little bed there. So I've got them in succession and a mix of varieties in each bed to hopefully give us a harvest from sort of January through to May. So a nice kind of continuous harvest. And if the plan goes right in May, we'll have cauliflowers. So we sort of go purple cauliflowers and calabrese, then purple sprouting broccoli, then cauliflowers and calabrese again. So that's our flowering brassica plan. The peppers seem to have finally grown some roots after that disaster with the compost earlier on in the year, and they're looking pretty good now, so I'm quite happy with these, and that's the first time I've actually said that I'm happy with the peppers, because yeah, it's not been a good year for peppers, but some of these plants have got really good crop on them. And I've got some beetroot at the back there, just massive beetroot. I did too much beetroot this year. And this bed is one of the beds that's coming out this year, and I'm putting trees in here as part of my sort of long-term plan to reduce the amount of food that we grow. And because we grow plenty and I grow more and more each year because I get better at gardening. So I'm sort of moving more and more spaces over to perennials. So you can see I've got a asparagus there, got my little sort of perennial orchard area there. I'm going to have another little perennial orchard area there. So step by step, and then this bed will be the next one to go, and then this bed will be the next one to go, you know, over time as I gradually move to a more perennial allotment plot. And then we've got more peppers here, and again these finally seem to have kind of recovered, and we're getting a decent sort of harvest off these, and some really nice big peppers as well, which is great. So I've just popped these salad onions in here, and finally, for the first time ever, I think I'm going to have abundant salad onions in autumn. We always do fine over winter and spring and summer, but autumn is always a bit of a challenge, but this year I seem to have cracked it. And then we've got the last of the watermelon beds. I've just cleared this one ready for replanting. And we just got one watermelon off each of these beds, but they were lovely. Champagne, sort of yellowy green flesh, really crisp. I don't actually like watermelons, but I actually like this champagne variety. So, and grandkids like it as well, which is the main reason for growing them this year. Okay, so now we'll look at all the carrots. So these are the babies. So these are the salad carrots that we'll be eating mostly through winter. These are mainly Eskimo variety, and they go all the way down there. And then these are the winter and the spring carrots. I take the tops off these in sort of November, late November sort of time, put a cold frame top on like this, and then interplant them with veggies for spring. And then these are the carrots we're currently harvesting. So we're sort of working our way through those. Hopefully we'll have all of those out again by the end of September, so that we can get this replanted with spinach. I think I've talked about that. Asparagus, a bit floppy. So this has been the worst ever year for codling moth. I've never seen the like of it. I've got so many losses to codling moth. Unbelievable. I think on some plants, maybe 70, some trees, 70, 80% have got codling moth. So I won't show you all of my climbing squash, but this is Crown Prince. And this is one plant, and I think I've got 7, maybe 8 good size squash growing on it at the moment. And that just shows what growing next to a compost bin does for you. It's amazing. Right, let me show you the tomatoes. So these are the tomatoes, the outdoor tomatoes, Tumbler and Red Profusion, and I've got some more behind me on the IBC tank and just scattered around the plot. And normally these have all finished by now, because these are not the early ones that we start harvesting in sort of early June time. And yeah, they're normally finished by now, but they've just kept on going. There's no flowers on them now, but just look at the number of tomatoes on them. Absolutely crazy for this time of year. For the early plants, of course the later plants are like this as well, but I expect that from the later ones. Yeah, no flowers, but doing great. So also on my RBC tanks, I've just got lots of new seedlings, salad onions, corn salad, spare celery plants, and yeah, growing some caterpillars there as well. Christmas potatoes are just starting to come up, and I didn't count those in my 28 tub tally, because I think these are always just a bonus. You know, you don't always get them. Potted up some parsley and celery to go into the Polytunnel in October. So I mentioned the problems with the codling moth, but that is almost offset by this pear harvest. What a stunner. And then finally outside, I've got my cherry tree and another pear tree. Again, it's doing really nicely. Really lovely proper pears on here. and a plum tree, which I think I've picked all the plums off. It's my first year harvesting plums off this tree, so I'm very excited about that. And apples, these are really quite nice, these apples. First harvest off these last year. And blackberries, and this this apple tree unfortunately is not so good. And my perennial kale, this is the only perennial kale I've got left, and it's looking pretty good. Needs a bit of TLC, but other than that, okay, let's look in the polytunnel. And outside the polytunnel, the courgettes have pretty much had it. I might get a few off them, but yeah, they've been good though. More salad onions, and yeah, it's looking quite nice in here. A bit more controlled than it normally is at this time of year. Normally it's a bit wild, but yeah, tomatoes are looking good. And yeah, we've just harvested them only 2 days ago, so they're ripening at a pretty good rate. I am absolutely thrilled with these Avaditas, but yeah, they're all doing fairly well. I'm quite pleased with them this year. Drying, these are the reject onions. I shouldn't really call them rejects because there's nothing wrong with them. They're just the small ones or the slightly damaged ones. So they're just the ones we're going to be eating between now and the end of the year. And just don't put quite so much attention into these in sort of preparing them and drying them and all of that sort of thing, because you know they're going to be eaten so quickly. I've got some little tomatoes at the end there. These are the ones that I just sowed for a course that I was doing on growing tomatoes, and decided to plant them up. And they're meant to be little bush tomatoes, you know, sort of trailing tomatoes for hanging baskets, but that doesn't seem to be the growth habit they're exhibiting for me. And we've got cucumbers, still throwing out a few, but they have slowed down now that the weather's cooled. And I've had to take a lot of the leaves off because of mildew, but I'm not so worried, you know, because we've got so many different squash. You know, we've got a lot of these centre cut squash, and these are all really nice. So it's not like we're short of squash. You know, I've got absolutely stacks of them off this one plant, and it provides some nice shade to me as well when I'm sitting on my chair. And I think we'll just finish off with these lettuces. So I just popped these in as a kind of emergency because we were really short of lettuce because we lost a lot to caterpillars. And in the polytunnel, they've grown at twice the rate that they've grown outside. And so it does to show how cold it has been this sort of July and August, that you know, lettuces have really thrived in the polytunnel rather than outside. You know, normally they do fantastic outside at this time of year, but no. So I'm pleased to put them in here because, you know, it's really, without these we wouldn't have managed to get through our weekly lettuce harvest. Anyway, my name's Steve, this is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.